Hi ladies. I know that this group is made for everyone to do a video and to tell their story. So I am doing a video about one of my experiences while I was incarcerated and telling my story. And this incident happened when I was at Gadsden Correctional Facility, and I know Gadsden is renowned for being Camp Cupcake, but yeah, nothing in prison is easy. This happened in 2010. I had pneumonia. I was very sick. I could barely walk. I could barely get out of bed. I was sick. And anybody that knows me knows that I am not a whiner or a complainer. And so for me to say that I could not get out of bed, I couldn't walk or anything, I was sick. I was in CDL class, in Mr. A's class. Anybody that was at Gadsden back in 2010 knows Mr. A that taught CDL. He was awesome. And they made me go to work call. They would not do a medical emergency, no nothing. They made me go to work call. I could barely breathe. I could barely walk. I got to Mr. A's class and he was like, you got to go to medical. You have to go to medical. You have to get out of here. You can hardly breathe. You're sick. You have to go. I went to medical. They told me it was not a medical emergency. They wrote me a CC. They sent me back to Mr. A. Told me I had a cold. I was exaggerating. Wrote me a CC. And told me to basically get some CTMs from the dorm. Nothing was wrong with me. I had pneumonia. I didn't know at the time that I had pneumonia, but I definitely had pneumonia. So I went back to the dorm, and with my last little bit of strength, I went and called home, and I called my mom, and I could barely talk because I could barely breathe. And I told her, I was like, I'm so sick. I can't breathe. I went to medical. I had my teacher declare a medical emergency. And they wrote me up for it and told me nothing was wrong with me, that I just had a cold. And she called Tallahassee. She called the warden. She called everybody. So after she called everybody, they called me back up to medical. They called me back up to medical and commenced to cursing me out. Telling me I'm a grown-ass woman. Why do I have my mom calling them? I'm grown. I know the procedure. I should have put in a sick call, blah, blah, blah. And let me tell you, I had put in a sick call. I just hadn't got called to it yet, and they hadn't put out the sick call yet. So she cursed me out, went off on me, gave me some CTMs and some ibuprofen, sent me back to the dorm again. After she cursed me out, because she only called me up there to curse me out. And mind you, it took every bit of my energy to walk to medical. So I've now walked to CDL class, and I was in Charlie dorm at the time. So I walked from the back of the compound to CDL class. I walked from CDL to medical, back to CDL, back to the dorm, and then back to medical, and I can barely breathe. So I go back to the dorm again, only to find out that I am, in fact, on sick call. So I have to walk back to medical. Thankfully, the sick call nurse was not the nurse that was there during the day, and she saw that I could not breathe and that I actually had pneumonia. And I ended up staying in the infirmary. Had it not been for my mom calling, had it not been for someone else actually caring, I could have died of pneumonia. And it's the craziest thing, because when my mom called, the young lady said, well, what do you think we're going to do? Let her die? And my mom was like, well, I would hope you wouldn't. And it's the craziest thing, because a month later, anybody that was at Gadsden will remember, a month later, Angela McDonald, who was in Charlie dorm with me at the time, was in C4 with me at the time. A month later, Angela McDonald died because they failed to give her proper medical attention. After numerous times of telling these people that she was blacking out in the dorm, after numerous times of telling these people about her head, after numerous times about her telling these people about her lupus, after numerous times of her going to medical for sick calls and medical emergencies. I remember at least 3 times us waking up in the middle of the night when she would go to the bathroom or go out on a dog run, and she would just be out of it. She could barely get back on her bed, and like nobody ever did anything. After all those times, she finally had the one time where it was an emergency, and they took forever. Sergeant White had to go. He had to leave the dorm, run to medical, and get the stretcher and bring it back because the nurse was taking too long. He got back. They got her on the stretcher before the nurse got there. And there was a... Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, so there was an officer there, Officer Thomas. Anybody that was at Gadsden, not big black Officer Thomas, but little white Officer Thomas, got down on his hands and knees to do CPR because the nurse was not there. No one from medical was there. Sergeant White had left the dorm and ran to medical to get the stretcher for her. And even after they ran and got the stretcher and got back and got her on the stretcher, the nurse, it still took her like another 2 or 3 minutes to get there. So it was just crazy to me that this lady was like, what do you think we're going to do? Let her die? And a month later, they let someone die. Like, and it could have been prevented. She told these people, I wish there was someone else from Gadsden that was in C4 in 2010-11 with us that could vouch for this story with me, because anybody who was there can tell you this girl went to medical so many times and they basically told her nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. And she died. But that's her story, not my story. But my story is, yes, that could have easily been me. I could have died of pneumonia, laying in a bed in C4 in 33 lower. I could have went to sleep not being able to breathe from pneumonia and died. So that is my story. I hope it helps.